Hello, Mar. Welcome to Galatta Plus.
Hi.
It was in this office when we were doing the Conversations book that I first heard about you doing Ponniyin Selvan, which was like some, 10, 11 years ago.
Wanting to do.
Wanting to do. Right, but you had already started the process.
Yeah.
There was some casting going on. Now you're on the other side of the project. It's like you've done it. What did it feel like on the last, it's been a very long time. So what did it feel like on the last day? Did you want to do like a victory lap or something like that?
The thing with the film is that it doesn't finish with the last day of the film.
Yeah, of course.
It carries on to the edit till you're getting it right. So you still can't get out of that mode. And you have 3 days to go, 2 days to go. And even yesterday, my editor came in case we wanted to tweak anything. But when there's something like this, it's very hard to let it go. You just want to hold on to it, see whether you can keep tweaking. So it's really like a parting, bidai, what do they call it?
Bidai.
Bidai, something like that. It's difficult to let go, what you've dreamt of for so long. And because once you let go, it's permanent.
Right,
That's how it's
right,
going to be.
right.
So you just wanted to be the best that you can put out.
Yeah, of course, there's a lot of post-production and all that kind of stuff. But I'm saying the last day you actually finished the shoot and knew you had the footage. You don't have to go out there and, that must have felt like some...
Yeah,
Like
I think that especially because in this film, one, the scale of it was so big, and two, we ran right through the pandemic period. So it was everything was stop and go. So we shot it in these cycle gaps between lockdowns. So that's how we shot the film. So it was good to be on the end of it.
So I'm going to ask you about this portion of youth that you've been drinking for the past 40 years. You score your biggest blockbuster in Chekkachandhavanam, and then you mount your biggest project ever in Ponniyin Selvan. And I don't know many directors that have been around for so long into whose hands this sum of money would be given and say, go make this dream project. What is this portion of youth recipe?
Maybe I'm like obliques in Asterix comic. Maybe I fell into some portion which was there. Or maybe it is your way of saying grow up.
I'm not saying grow up.
No, but it's at last come. So it was really wonderful to have the project, greenlit, the budget available, and then we could get into casting and actual production. And I think it actually, in a lot of ways, this is the right time.
Right.
It is. We are much better equipped to do now. We're able to do it as two parts instead of cramming so much into one part. We have so much growth in VFX, and we are having a budget which is bigger, and it is possible to market the film in several languages. So I think in a lot of ways it was the right time.
Yeah, it inadvertently kind of
Happened.
worked out this way. That's good. But I was only half joking about this portion of youth because let me give you this example from three of your most beloved films, which is, I think they're called the romantic trilogy or whatever it is that people like to put labels on. But let's talk about Mouna Ragam, Alai, and OK Kanmani. Now, Mouna Ragam is very much a product of the 80s. It's still a very, very watchable film. But what I'm trying to say is its ethos, its sentiment, is set in the 80s. The Tali plays a very important role in that film. So much so that there are many dialogues involving the word Tali. And also when, your framing, when for example, when Revati is signing her divorce paper, you frame it in such a way that you see the Tali hanging down from her neck so that the contrast is seen. Alai, it's done, it comes about 14, 15 years later, and the Tali becomes a little lighter in the sense that Madhavan removes the Tali because they're making love and it's poking him. And of course, you just mentioned it in a line of dialogue. But then he hides the Tali and then makes a search for it. He hangs it on a shaving mirror. So it's treated a little more lightly than it was during Revati's Mouna Ragam time. And by the time we get to OK Kanmani, there's no Tali at all. Because the couple doesn't believe in marriage, first of all. So there is no Tali at the end. There's a registered marriage. But when Nitya Menon is seen there, she's just wearing a necklace or something. There is actually no Tali at all. This kind of things I'm talking about, because a lot of us, we grow up in a particular era and the foundational things that are given to us by society, by whatever it is, by movies, whatever you call it, cultural foundational things. It could be even the music that one listens to, like let's say you grew up listening to MSC or Ilayaraja, whatever it is, that framework becomes the way most of people lead their lives. So how do you keep yourself attuned to the tastes of generations that come after you? That like how do you do this kind of up to date, remain up to date with society?
You know, if I honestly look at all the three characters, I think they're all very similar. I think they're strong women and reacting to a particular situation.
Right.
To me, in my mind, there's not too much difference between Divya, between Shakti and Tara.
Yeah.
All three
Right.
are bold women who have a mind and who fit into the middle class milieu, and within that they're trying to find their space for them.
Yeah.
I think what changed in these three films is the society around changed.
Yeah.
The basic essence of the character have remained constant.
Sure.
So it is just that the world they find themselves is different now. I mean, there for a woman to ask for a divorce from an arranged marriage as soon as he realized it's not going to work for her was a bold statement, and she was firm and she was clear on it. And when it comes to Shakti, where she realizes that it is just a symbol. It is just a symbol for exterior. It didn't matter to her or to him. So it becomes that was the generation that the world has changed, where you could take it lightly. People have started working.
Right.
They didn't have to necessarily wear it every day, or they'd put it inside. So I mean, things were happening around. And by the time we came to OKK, there were people living together. No, I mean, there's no question.
Right.
The society had with reluctance started accepting it. So what I feel is that the world keeps changing, and therefore if your views are there, if you whatever you appreciate, whatever you admire is reacting to a different world, we get a different product.
Is it through interacting with youngsters? How does that happen? I'm not saying that, of course, you're reading the newspapers, you're getting all this information about how society is changing and all, but you really find your head into these characters, even though they're generations, below. That's what I'm asking.
I don't have any specific methods. I think if you have to write a script tomorrow about today's characters, you will do the same.
Okay.
I mean, we live today,
Right.
and we are aware of what is happening. We meet people, we meet the youngsters, the younger generation, what they do, what they act, and what are the words they use. So it all goes into you. So when you're actually trying to portray them, it is not very difficult. It's not a very alien thing that I'm from the ancient time that I have to come here.
That's not what I meant at all.
So it's there. I think all of us will be able to do it. It's only in my job I have to do it,
Right.
because that's the only way I get it across.
Right, and that's probably it, because your job is observing a lot also outside of the movie. So maybe that's what keeps you constantly looking. Whereas with other people, they stop after a while
Right,
and
right.
settle into a groove which is comfortable for them.
Our problem is that when we look at anything, heartless, merciless, we just see whether it'll make a good scene or whether it'll make a good film. So it's that one side of that's inside you, which is constantly looking for things and saying, this is right. It might be the most poignant scene. It might be the most sorrowful situation, but still one part of your mind looks at it to see, if there's any input there.
What a great scene this would make. You always say that every project is tough, and but even considering that, was this the toughest thing you've ever done?
It was.
Okay.
Undoubtedly it was. But strangely, I think I'll say this is the project which I've enjoyed the most while shooting.
Lovely.
It's a strange thing. It was tough. It had all the difficulty. It was scale. It had just the size of the crew and cast was that many. But day in, day out, it was very enjoyable. It felt very good at the end of each day. And we were shooting with all the difficulty, and there was chances where we didn't know whether we'll be able to shoot again or not. But within all that, I think we did enjoy. I think all of us did, and especially I'm not too sure about the rest, but I really enjoyed the shoot. So it was tough, yes, but I think it was also very, very enjoyable.
The logistical part made it tough, is that it?
Yeah, I think just anywhere, to shoot anywhere, to assemble, even if I have to shoot here in this room
Right.
any scene, which I can't. But if I have to, it still would be for Ponniyin Selvan, it will be elaborate.
Right, because so many people.
So many people, so many looks, so many props that have to change, so many elements that come into it. You
Right,
know, I mean,
right.
the entire hair and makeup department will come, the costume department will come, and there might be something going outside, so we have to arrange for that. So all, you know, anything and everything. No shoot was an easy shoot.
Yeah.
So it needed a whole team, and it worked only because I had a really, really strong team.
Yeah. Now, one of the reasons I respect you so much as a filmmaker is, I'm going to use this word deliberately, your bravery. I'll tell you why. You've never told the same story twice, except in your bilinguals, probably. And even, again, if you consider your what people call your terrorism trilogy or whatever it is, Roja is very different treatment wise, story wise from Bombay, which is very different story wise, treatment wise from Dil Se, which is a very twisted love story, which happens to be a favorite genre of mine. These weird love stories, I just love those. So coming back to the word bravery, most people, most filmmakers that I meet or have chats with, they live on the opposite side of that, which is fear. Opposite of, they're like, will my film work? Will this hero heroine combination work? Should I have another song? Should I, is this enough? Is that enough? Should I need an extra fight? Where does this bravery come from? I mean, you may not use that exact word, but you know what I'm asking you.
I think I have short-term memory, you know, because when you finish a film and it is there, like Ponniyin Selvan is there, you're filled with fear, you're filled with anxiety. You're not, you're no different, you know, it's just there. It's just that after the film is released and it's over, whichever way it goes, by the next film starts, you put on this bravery cloak, you know, and you try to forget the rest of them and just go and discover it all over again.
Right.
So it is not as though what happens or what can happen won't affect me. It does. I am making films in the mainstream. To me, it is very important that the film goes and reaches people. And but the way I approach it is that because I've come from being there as an audience in the group, in the cinema theater watching, I come from there. Therefore, I'm trying to see whether this will work for me if I sit there.
Right.
If somebody else had made it, will I be okay with it? What would I want? You know, what would I say no to? In the sense, if they're repeating themselves, I would get very bored very fast. So those things are the ones which kind of guide you, which kind of say, no, don't do that, don't get there, you know. So it is, and invariably I try to do that by jumping into things that I don't know. Not jumping into the next project, I try to make it as different from the previous one as possible, so that, you know, you have to discover all over again. No, so that keeps you going. I think the unknown factor keeps you going, and you have to swim. You have to reach the other side. So you're not really thinking of the fear at that point. The moment it is over, then the fear slowly starts creeping in.
Okay. No, so I'm saying, you're saying you're putting yourself as part of the audience, right? Just like you say, you keep your, like, inevitably you keep updating yourself with society. You should also be aware of the fact that we are now an increasingly attention deficit audience, where maybe the long scenes that you use in your earlier films and things like that, they may not work today, in the sense of the audience might get bored or whatever it is. So when you take on tough subjects, like let's take your last decade, there have been two relatively easier to digest subjects like OKK and Chekka Chevandavanam, and two tough subjects like Kaatru Veliyidai and Cuddle. When you take on the tough subjects like those, I'm sure it's stimulating to you when you take that on, because like it's unknown territory, you're trying to make something happen, it's very exciting and all that. But you also, are you also thinking about the audience when will they take this domestic abuse drama where the hero is mostly a, pardon my French, but a dick throughout the movie, or will they take this very unusual drama about God and Satan fighting for the soul of this young boy? Does that run through you?
Strangely, you know, whenever you start a film, you're fully convinced it will reach. You're fully convinced you're doing the right thing, that it will work, that it isn't. I never think of it as a tough film. I did not think of Cuddle as a tough film, did not think of Kaatru Veliyidai as a tough film. Maybe only in retrospect we can look at it that way. But when we were doing, to me, it touched a core about a boy caught between the two. It is dramatic. It has all the things. Maybe we didn't deliver it perfectly, but I still think it is within the mainstream. We can make human drama of a youngster caught between two very strong forces and he's attached to both. So it is enough drama. Somebody else will make it right, I'm sure. Similarly, Kaatru Veliyidai, I thought, in a way, it's not like Alai in the sense, there is a relationship before marriage and after marriage. I mean, there's a changes that happens.
Right.
And a lot of people identify with it. A lot of people say, yeah, it's true that we had behaved differently after marriage. I thought similar to that would be Kaatru Veliyidai in the sense, I think there are a lot of couple who are actually go through this,
Right.
who actually face this in reality, that they can't break away. It could be after marriage, it could be before marriage. They can't break away, but they're still attracted. I mean, the relationship is caustic. So it happened, maybe not to you, but you can see it happening around you.
Yeah.
And therefore, I thought that is a story that was not told often. So it was possible to take that and make a mainstream film out of it. The fact that it didn't, reach across to the people is something that you have to, I mean, I don't think the concept is wrong. I think the presentation is wrong.
Okay.
Maybe that's why it didn't reach people. So you just take that, take that lesson from there and move on.
Like, for example, what is the lesson you took from Kaatru Veliyidai? What was the presentation aspect? Any one thing that you feel?
Maybe it needed one side to be elevated to that way.
Okay.
To show the darker side. We were just showing a Air Force pilot. So maybe that is no. Maybe if we had something in him that we can admire, then we can see the flaws better.
Okay.
That is what I'm trying to.
Okay, all right. Now let's talk about Ponniyin Selvan. For me, the benchmarks for period historical films were both by, cinematically speaking, are both by Girish Karnad. One is Ondanondu Kaladali in Kannada, shot by the great A.K. Beer. And the second one is Utsav, again Girish Karnad in Hindi, shot by the great Ashok Mehta. What are your personal benchmarks?
Yeah, I think I remember seeing Undanand Kaladali just before my first film. I thought, I really loved it. In fact, I went looking for those locations in near Chikmagalur and things like that. And many years later, I met A.K. Beer and told him that I'm a big fan of the film. It was a samurai film which was set into rural India, so brilliantly done, beautifully shot. It's just amazing. And then, like you say, Utsav was path-breaking. I mean, Utsav was a gold standard. I mean, the fact that they were able to create that ambience, the look, the way it was lit, the way it was costumed, all details on, props and things like that. Just outstanding, just amazing work. And there have been, Umrah Jan, Muzaffar Ali's Umrah Jan, which again was spectacular. And there must have been before, which I've not seen. Mughal-e-Azam probably was that. I see a little bit of Sanjay Leela Bhansali film. I feel that he's very strongly influenced by that kind of a grandeur. So there have been really masters that have all set very strong benchmarks. But for me, the most important influence was Kurosawa. That is what possibly drew me into cinema, and he had mastered that art completely, and so made it so believable, made it so real, made it didn't look, it looked organic. It was in real location with weather changes, with dirt, dust, with all the sweat and everything built into it. So it almost became contemporary and not, an ancient story.
Like we were going into that story.
Correct.
The story was coming to us.
Correct.
Yeah. Now I'm going to quote Adur Gopalakrishnan, who said, if you take Tamil cinema, it has significantly changed after Mani Ratnam's entry. Needless to say, there were others, but Mani changed the basic look of Tamil cinema. It's a statement I agree with. I don't want you to comment at all because you're going to be modest and say something. But what I really want to know is, you've not been an assistant director. You have an eye, which is probably, it's very rare because you kind of know exactly what to put on the frame. I'm talking purely as cinema, like on the thing. You just mentioned Kurosawa, like David Lean, like Spielberg. You like the big screen. You like staging for the big screen. Like you're not ashamed of big screen beauty. When I say ashamed, I mean today a particular kind of realistic kind of film is what is taken as, oh, that's an actual film, whereas the rest is just pretty or whatever it is. How did you develop your eye to stage for this big screen? Is it just by watching these masters, or is it also something else?
First, I should say that Adur is very gracious, very kind,
Yeah,
very.
we leave that other thing
Yeah. Yeah, I think where does all your aesthetic come from? In not just in cinema, but in any form.
Sure.
I mean, if I ask you, how do you develop your writing style? How you have a very unique and a quite a strong style. How do you develop it? I mean, where does it come from? It comes from whatever you've liked before and whatever your personality is. So it's a blend.
Right.
I think those inputs are very strong. And the thing is, it is not necessary when you talk of a look for a film um, to go see, for example, when the time when David Lean was there, Kurosawa was there, Godard was there, Truffaut was there, Fellini was there, Citizen Kane, Orson Welles was there, Stanley Kubrick was there. So I mean, there were different inputs at the same time.
Right.
There was not one particular thing, and Kurosawa himself does another high and low completely different.
Yeah.
So all those become your learning curves. So you don't have to necessarily like and dislike one particular style. If the story demands you to be gritty, then it's nice to be gritty, nice to be handled, nice to be, make it as raw as possible,
Right.
that it doesn't look staged or choreographed. And when it needs a spectacle, you go with that. I mean, David Lean has set the benchmark for you, so you go for it. Only thing is, I have issues when I don't want to go and establish something very big for the sake of establishing
Yeah,
something.
sure.
It should be part of the narrative. I don't believe in grandness for the sake of grandness, which doesn't serve any purpose, but just to show, see, I can do this.
Right, right.
So that's what I try to avoid as far as possible, especially when I'm making this film, that it should have a purpose. The bigness should have a story to tell. That is the only time that you go for it. Otherwise, don't go for it. You have to be honest to the story, and if that takes you into this big screen space, enjoy it.
Right. No, but I'm saying, when I say big screen, let me quote two scenes for you with women that you've staged. One is a very poetic big screen moment, which is a near silent moment in Kaatru Veliyidai, where Aditi reveals to Karthi that she's pregnant in front of a mirror. That's easily a scene that could have been told with dialogue, saying, dude, this is what happened, or whatever it is. But she doesn't. There's a poetry to the whole staging, the scene choreography, the way,
Yeah.
he looks up, and then when he sees his face, he's repelled by his face, and suddenly his opinion changes about, oh my God, I should not be having a baby and all. That whole thing is told almost wordlessly.
Yeah.
So I'm talking about form. And another thing is, like, when you say, okay, Kanmani, the scene where Nitya reveals to Dulquer about her father and how the divorce happened and all that kind of stuff, she has that, what is that, that grill or net or whatever it is in front of her. She's kind of doing lovely things with it. But at the same time, it could have worked as a static shot, but you have that nice handheld feel to that moment, that the camera keeps shaking, like kind of mirroring that unsteadiness or what, that thing in the mind. I'm talking about form, and I'm asking on behalf of all future filmmakers, how does one develop the cinematic form in oneself, as opposed to, because we come from a very strong stage background, right?
Yeah,
Like, our cinema started in like much after Hindi cinema did. Like, Gurudutt was in the 50s itself, he was doing stuff, whereas in Tamil cinema you have to get to the 70s pretty much to kind of, I mean, Sridhar was doing stuff and all, but I'm telling mostly, how does one develop that eye for form?
I think the content is primary.
Sure.
Okay, the content of whether it's a story or whether it's a scene that you're doing, I think that is God. I mean, that is all. Now, the job of the director is to take that scene or story and translate it onto screen with some kind of magic, something that makes it real, believable, which will not look like, like a cliche. Let me go to that example that you raised. I mean, there Aditi says that she's pregnant. Okay, that is the content of the film, of the scene, and it has been done before, and it's been done silently so many times before. It has been where I remember, I can't say, so many times where she takes her hand and keeps it on her tummy,
Yeah.
and you've seen enough of it, I mean, so it's been said in words, it's been done without words and things like that. And you have the same scene to say. So you have to find a way which will not make it repetitive. Which kind of distracts it with something else. And then this revelation comes so that it doesn't look like, I mean, the content comes across fully.
Right.
The idea is only that the form is not individually special. The form is only if it can help you understand.
Right.
So it has in the mirror, of not actually seeing the action, but only the faces, and with that, if you're able to read what has happened, then it's another way of telling. Wipes away the other films that you've seen before and just comes directly to the content. This is a search. I mean, before I went in, I didn't have it in the short breakdown. It was not. We just search. I think to me it has perpetually been that. You want to say this, and on the shoot, you search for something that will elevate it. Most of the time, actors do that for you. When they perform it, they make it so real, you just have to capture it. But sometimes you have to add, to take away, to bring across the point more, effectively, more real and more touching. So that is all, that is where the form comes in.
You said that is all, but that is not all. It's a huge thing. Right?
Yeah, it is. I'm not saying no.
Yeah.
It is a struggle, but I think this is what you're paid for. I mean, this element of, if assuming you have a writer who's written it, you might be the same person, but still you're the writer, you have written it already. And the rest will be taken care of. There are actors in front of you. Now, the job of the director is only to convert this written work into film.
Right.
And that is what you're paid for. That is what you wanted to do. So you come here and there's no fixed formula. There's no way. You can have a style or you can invent a style. I mean, the only thing is it cannot be individual. It cannot be for this scene, for this shot. Yeah. It has to have a flow through the film for it to work effectively.
Right. When something is so filled with dialogue like Ponniyin Selvan, how do you do the same thing, which is like introduce, let's say, some moments of quiet or silence or something like that? Can you kind of give an example without revealing too much?
Yeah, I think it is. I think though so many things are filled with dialogues, there are always things between the dialogues that make a lot of difference. And the gaps between that, where you cut to a reaction, cut to somebody else watching it. Those are the things that underline or highlight whatever is important. So I think how much ever the dialogue is important, there will be spaces.
Right.
There will be silence between the dialogues or without the dialogues. Right. There will be moment, because this is essentially a medium which deals with people, and not just what they say, but what they feel.
Right.
And what they feel comes out in the silent shots.
Right.
In their faces. And even when they're saying something, the face could actually say something else. So there will be moments. There's nothing in cinema which won't have those moments. And because that is what moves it away from a stage play or a street play into a cinema.
Right. What was the look of Ponniyin Selvan that you and Ravi Varman kind of said, this is what the look of the film should be? Like, for example, did you say we should do it in long takes, or did you say we should what was the core visual thought behind this?
I think the concept is something which you fix early. For example, when we were doing Nayakan, there was a choice of doing it in a slightly sepia kind of a feel to get the 50s and and the growth and things like that, and to do it in CinemaScope and do it normally. So we did a screen test. We did a test to lab test. So we shot it one way. We shot the same thing in nothing inanimate stuff is what we shot, and then we screened it and realized that we'll go with skin tone. We'll bring in HMIs. We'll make the blue. We'll make it look like normal, not paint a backstory, not go period. So that becomes a defining moment
Right.
for the rest of the film. That takes care, defines how we go about for the rest of the film. In Ponniyin Selvan, it was the similar concept was there, that we didn't want it to look like us, that I'm telling you a story about 1,000 years back. We didn't want, Kalki has this magical way of narrating it. He says, let's go,
Yeah.
1,000 years back in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And he takes you there, and constantly he's talking to you as he's narrating
Yeah.
with the viewer. Makes it very inclusive. So on film, how do you do that? By not trying to stay away, but trying to stay inside it. Trying to bring everything that will make it alive, that moment of time. Nothing is pristine. Nothing is like a huge palace which is untouched and things like that. There's small flaws which make it real. And I think that way there are a lot of masters like Kurosawa who told you how it is done to make it very contemporary. And here, that is what the filmmaking we decided will be contemporary. Though it is about a past, we're not taking the shots in a classical fashion. It is constantly moving. It is like eye that is searching. It's like somebody getting all the information, and we are with her instead of the information that is being told. And if we are in the war, we are in the war. Not shooting a war from outside, but actually in the middle of it. And Ravi Varman had to take the camera in hand and go inside in the middle of it, face danger, get hurt a couple of times. But that's what we did. That's what he actually was able to pull off, make it look like really contemporary.
Right. So instead of going far and showing it like a
Yeah.
museum piece, you dived in, and that's the
That's
style
approach,
that
where
the
the frames are not perfect. The frames are not picture postcard of a, it's not in that school. It's not Barry Lyndon,
Right.
but it is more like Ran, So that is the difference. Both will work, but the style you choose defines how you go.
Yeah. An extension to this question is that there are many filmmakers who work with different collaborators depending on their availability and all that kind of stuff. But you generally stick to a core set, with probably the exception of the cinematographers that you keep rotating. Again, people you're comfortable with. Earlier it was Ilayaraja, Thota, Tharani, Beelan and VT Vijayan for the editing. And then now it's Rahman, Eka Lakhani for the costumes, Sharmisha Roy or Thota Tharani for this particular project, or like you have Shikhar Prasad as the editor. Now, are you? This is a very Bergman-like approach where Ingmar Bergman, because he came from the theater, he worked with the same people over and over and over and found new things in them, and they pushed him the same way. Like most famously, his cinematographer Sven Nykvist did that for him. Does this give you a level of comfort while doing a movie? Is that kind of a thing? Because why I ask is, or is there also the danger that when you've aligned with another person and you've been looking at the same thing the same way for so long, is there the danger of repeating yourself or not getting new inputs?
There's always the danger, and only the danger is more obvious at the shooting spot.
Okay.
Okay, there the thing is, the pre-production, post-production are different. Whereas in shooting, you are in a real location. There is pressure of artist. There is pressure of the entire cast and crew that is there, hanging, waiting for you to do. And there is fading light, and umpteen problems are there, and that you have to deliver. So there sometimes you get into corners very fast. And the corners, when you go into corners, you don't want to go safe to what you have done before and repeat that to get out of a problem. So there's a good chance. So it is easy for me. I feel that I benefit tremendously by moving within this extremely talented pool. Each one, depending on their time schedule, each one can do any of the films very well.
Sure.
There are no doubts about it. It's just that we don't fall back, and when they go out, do other films and come, they get other inputs and they other styles and things like that. So we try to keep ourselves fresh at the shooting. In the crisis, in the melting pot, you need to be at your toes. Whereas both pre and post is the time is little more under your control. You have time to think, to go, And there, all the technicians that are with me are probably the best. And till now, till I feel that they're adding value to the film, until they feel that doing this is exciting and it is different from what they're doing, then we keep contributing to each other. It's the moment you feel that it's stagnating, it's time for you to look for others. It's time for them to look for others. So right now, I think that has timelessness. It has gaps, and therefore we keep evolving. It's a lot more relaxed, so we can depend totally on people who will add value to. They're all better at their jobs than I am at their jobs. Okay, so they know which is way. So you keep communicating as what you feel, and they'll be able to translate it.
And it's also probably the trust, because like supposing you're a little mixed about this or that because you've seen the film 50,000 times, like you can ask Shekhar, should I go this way or this way?
Yeah.
And you know that that trust is also
100%, 100%. That he will only push me forward and not pull me back.
Yeah.
That confidence is there, and he has the same trust. So it was very easy to work with. You don't have to find the rhythm all over again with a new person.
Now, this is a film where you reunite with Thota Tharani after a long time. What did he say?
No, I think when we first thought of this film, from that time he's been very keen to do a period film,
Right.
which I think he's grown quite a bit in the era where his father and all of them were involved in a lot of films which are historical, mythological. So, and that is a talent which he never could, exhibit. So he had enough knowledge and liking towards that school, and all the films he was doing was predominantly contemporary, with just one song here and there which will go there. So he was always keen on doing this film. It didn't happen several times. So this time when it happened, he wanted to be there. And it didn't look like we had not worked for a while at all. It was just perfectly like the first film it was, so it was not a problem. And only one thing changed. In sense, he's one person who does sketching for everything.
Right.
And he does it to scale and does it so precisely that it's fantastic to watch. Each one you can frame it. It'll be that good, what he does. So my impression has always been that Thota is all perfect already in things like that. Only this film, I got reminded that he is as bad as I am. However precisely he puts the set up, as he's putting it up, there's so much that he adds, he changes, that he improvises, that he builds it up as it goes, that he has to be physically there to, just keep enhancing that, adding small things which make a difference. So it is good to see that, that he's there and he makes it alive.
Right. And you also mentioned that you didn't want grandeur for the sake of grandeur, right?
Yeah.
So that probably something else that he, because his designs are, how do I put that? A little, I wouldn't, like a little minimalistic. Like that's also something that when you see the movie, you probably get the feel from the trailers.
Yeah.
This is a question that is coming from a place of genuine curiosity and not cynicism. Now, there have been reports that the warriors wore real leather because that's not, that was a time when they wore leather instead of metal armor because metal was just too much weight and things like that, right? Now, this level of detail, how important it is, and I again go back to your favorite director, when Kurosawa did Redbeard, and he wanted to do the set for the doctors, that is
The cabins.
Toshiro Mifuno's cabin and the door and the gateway and all that. He insisted that it be built with wood that had been aged 100 years. That if that wood was less than 100 years old, he didn't want that wood in that cabin. And I remember thinking, like when an audience saw it, would they register? How does this help? It's a genuine curious question. It's not coming from a place of why do it.
Yeah.
I understand there's a reason.
The way I see it is that making a metal armor is as cumbersome as making a leather armor. Okay, so it is not either or. So if you're going to make it anyway, why not make it with something which is more real? Okay, and audience may not notice. Ideally, they should not notice at all. But something in it will, ring true. why go to a metal which is a very Roman thing, and just because it's been used before in period films?
Right.
Kalki had written this book, and there's so much of research he has put in, so much of detail that is there. So if he's made a path, of getting it as real as possible and not paint this Raja Rani picture, then it is at least the least we can do is try to make it as authentic as possible. So, and I sincerely feel that that people will not know the difference, but it will make a difference. They will feel a difference, 100%.
Right.
I think that is what we bank on. That something in it looks, looks real. The texture is real. So that's what we search for.
So when we are watching Redbeard, for instance, we are unconsciously responding to the 100-year-old wood.
Yeah, yeah. You take that world of this man, Redbeard, in a hospital that's been there for a long time. It becomes tradition. It has become, and this new medicine that comes in has to, take this tradition, take it along. It cannot be cut away from that. So I think it was more than just the wood. I think he was telling a story with that kind of thing.
Yeah. So you're known for your speed on the sets. You're not a David Fincher kind of director who says, let me take 100 shots till I'm satisfied. You're not that person.
Definitely not. Can't take 100 takes, and it is definitely not what works for me. I think after some time it becomes numb, and we don't even know, when you take it to editing, we don't even know why we said no to this, why do we said okay to this. It becomes, all of them more or less fall into similar categories. That is also because what I look for is not perfection.
Right.
When I shoot, I like this slight imperfection. I like this, small accidents, happy accidents as they call it, which will make it alive. That doesn't make it look like it's perfectly choreographed. That there are some errors. I would have said something and something would have come, and the thing that is supposed to cross comes at the wrong time, and people all react to it in frame.
Yeah.
And therefore it adds value to it. So when you're searching constantly for that kind of a small, element which makes it more real, then there's no question of trying for a perfection. I'm trying for imperfection actually. So there is it's a search. It's not achieving perfection. It's a search for perfection that we do during the shooting. And at some point of time, you draw a line and say, yeah, this is as far as we go, and then we get on.
Now, when you're saying you're not searching for perfection, what if, let's say, you have 4 takes, 5 takes, but you're not getting the performance that you want?
Yeah.
That way, would you still say accident and?
No.
Okay.
You'd push as much as you can push. You don't give up easily. If it is rings falls, then you're not getting anything. So you try to push, you try to threaten, you promise that you'll push them from the building. You do anything, but you try to get it to work. And but that can't be endless. I should know that beyond a point, if it's not going to come, if I'm not able to get that out of this person, then maybe after 100 takes also, I won't be able to get this out. So I draw a line. I tried some other way of covering it, doing it differently, getting that same impact in a different fashion.
Right. Because every single decision is going to go back to you, right? For example, when people see this movie, they'll say, like, this person's not doing well, or that thing has not been shot well, or whatever it is that did not happen the way you wanted. Which is why I was talking about that perfectionism. But like you said, it's probably a search, and it can't be endless.
Yeah.
Because time is also limited, and you're
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you have come from making a lot of small films with no budget, with having to finish it within certain number of days, and trying within that to do whatever you can, you get into the habit of being able to do it fast and efficiently. So that becomes important. Right. Didn't have the luxury of a elaborate big budget film right on top. So you are trained to run fast.
Right. So when you do get a big budget film like this, it's the same.
It's the same training.
Kind of theory. Yeah. Now, a director has to leave his or her unique imprint on every film, and yet kind of make it not seem like a Mani Ratnam, like he's doing the same thing in every film. how do you work with your collaborators that way? Do you say either convince me or let me convince you? Is that the way you do that?
Not strictly in those terms, I mean, we work in tandem, really. I mean, sometimes it's like playing doubles. You get a partner who is much safer than you. He's there standing at the net and he'll cover. So you manage your side, then you're fine.
Right.
So it's in that sense, it is. I get really top technicians and I trust them and they trust me. So together we try to find something, and I take the responsibility. But if they are not convinced with what I'm saying, I will listen to what they're saying, give it a shot. And if I'm still not okay, I might come back to what I'm doing. But I think invariably we've been in sync. We've not really been too different. Sometimes I'll go with what he's saying because it might open up a new door for me. And lots of times they go with what I'm going because I'm carrying the entire story and the narrative and the rhythm with me. So I have the fuller picture of the entire situation. So it's easier to go this way.
Yeah.
So I think it's a nice balance.
Yeah.
I think they do contribute quite substantially into the film. I think if somebody else had shot this film instead of Ravi Harman, it would have looked very different.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of him in the film. There's a lot of Srikar in the film, a lot of Tharani in the film. So I think and that is why I have them. I mean, they better be there.
Yeah. No, one of the things that really stand out in your films is the scene choreography. And sometimes, I'm not saying this is easy, but sometimes it's just two actors like that. We just talked about that Aditi revealing she's pregnant scene in Kaatru Veliyidai. But in that same film, there's another wonderful instance of scene choreography where she's waiting at the register office and he forgets about her. And then she comes to find him. And you have this massive mirror at a bar and Air Force officers crisscrossing. Karthi is talking to his friend about Kurukshetra and Dharma and war and this and that and all that. And just the right time, you have to time the actors so that they part and you see Aditi in the mirror as Karthi looks at the mirror and kind of a thing. So that kind of precision is difficult enough with that set of actors. In this kind of a scale, how difficult was the scene choreography?
Sometimes the scene choreography is what makes that scene alive, like I was telling you. For example, the Aditi coming to the canteen. We had conceived that shot the day before we packed up. The next day morning, we were going to do this. So they had to shift all the mirrors from which was placed differently, set up the entire thing. And the shot was designed with that in mind, that we will go through all these gaps, several lines will come and go, audio will move from left to right, and then we'll come to this point of time. And we had this many people staying there. So there were assistant directors who will be there right below, holding that person, moving him, moving there, and making somebody cross and dragging away. And sometimes we won't have enough juniors, so they have to come back and be in frame somewhere else. So it's an exercise, but you specifically reach for that, search for that.
Yeah.
And it'll mean elaborate choreography, which has to be done perfectly. It's a single shot and it has to hold that way.
Right.
Whereas in Ponniyin Selvan, the thing is there are lots of scenes where lots of people stand and talk.
Right.
All these chieftains stand and talk. They have arguments and things like that. And there are 2-3 very similar like that. And how do we make each one different? How do you make it ring true and not look like one more conflict scene or one more group scene? So each one had to have its own choreography, and it was not easy. It always scared me to see how I'm going to do it. I used to have nightmares over it. Didn't know how I could get it right, because it's right from the early stage. Those scenes were the ones which I was scared of, but you find ways. If you know what you shouldn't do, that you shouldn't keep repeating, that people just can't stand and just talk.
Yeah.
You can't cut to close up and then a master shot and then cut back. That you can't do both, that it should be organic. And then you start searching. So each one comes with one element that will change the sequence. For example, it's not there in this, it's in PS2, where this kind of a group is there. The moment I put one actor on a horseback. That he comes into it and he doesn't get off the horse. And he's talking, dealing with all of them below on a horse. Then the staging becomes completely different.
Yeah.
The attitude is different. And the fact that the horses don't keep quiet, that they keep moving,
Yeah.
and that we have to capture it. So that's the kind of thing you search for. You search for something that will make it, just talking heads, taking it away from being talking heads and tell a story and bring another element to it. So each one was tough. I mean, those kind of sequences are tough for a director to choreograph, to block, as they call it,
Right.
between where the actors are and where the camera is, and how do we
Move it around.
Yeah, move it around to make it look real.
Yeah. What was A.R. Rahman's first reaction when you said Ponniyin Selvan is finally on?
He was very excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he likes new turf. He likes difficult projects, and he was genuinely excited, and he really felt that we should do something special. I think it was there till the last date of background score. He had that same motive that we should do this with a lot of care.
When you talked about staging the Sundari song in Talapati, you said it was, of course, your fascination for Kurosawa, but it was also came from your wanting to do Ponniyin Selvan for a long time, and that was one, at least in that song, you could kind of infuse some elements of. So, what was it like finally getting a movie on which you could unapologetically stage big like song sequences? Because you're also one person who keeps saying, I start my movies thinking there should be no songs, but then Rahman gives me these songs and you kind of end up including them. So what is it like to finally get the stage?
In this film, it was not just the songs. No, I mean, I had the liberty to do the whole film that way. Whereas in those films, there's only song could be the only excuse where you could, take a detour and.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Here, everything was like that. I mean, start any scene that I do. I mean, the fact that you see a man riding fast on a horse is good enough. I mean, all the westerns that you have seen, comes back to you. So I think I had that feel there right through the film. Everything, maybe that's why I was very happy, because everything you do has got that quality to it, has got that adventure to it, has excitement of a adventure yarn.
Yeah. Rajiv told me that when you give him instructions, it's not in terms of I want this lens, I want that lens, but you give him a descriptive kind of I want the shot to feel like a whisper, or like I want this to feel like it's eavesdropping on something like that. So I'm going to name the songs in this movie. Can you give me just one line or one word that you told Rahman that this is the feel that I want? I'll begin with the Poni Nadi.
I don't know, honestly.
You don't remember?
I don't remember. Or do you do several things, so it's not as simple. Sometimes you come up with this one word as a last minute push to, no, I mean, maybe I would have said light was going, we had to pack up and somebody was going away, so I had to tell Rajiv that maybe, so it becomes the kind of shot that I'm requiring. There's an intimacy to it, and there is a frame to it, so it becomes easy. So it didn't require an elaborate thing.
Right.
So you do it out of necessity, but sometimes you say the shot, sometimes but I want them to know the feel that I'm looking for all the time. Now I want them to know, like for Rahman, when we did Roja, when we did the Pudu Velle Mare, I told him that I want to feel the cold weather. I wanted to feel snow, in the music. I don't know why I said that. I just thought that was a nice line to tell him. But
that's what it is. That's the first time she sings snow.
So the music, he brought it out in music. Sometimes you don't know whether they can do it or not, but that's what you ask for. So sometimes I don't even remember what I asked for. Sometimes, to move away from one tune that they think is good to get something else, you can say something absolutely different.
Right.
You can say, let's leave it. Shall we try something in Spanish? You know what I mean? I have no connection. Just means I want them to move on with something else. So it just, you keep going, you try, and together only we try figuring out. Sometimes I don't feel that this tune is good, but he knows that it is there. So he has a way of telling it, and so I go back to it, I take it home, listen to it a couple of times and see that it keeps coming back. So each push with different ways.
You experiment a lot with the song structure. I'm going to take two examples, Nayakan and Kadal. The title song for, that is the opening credit song for both the films, are on an orphaned boy who's going to grow up to be a criminal kind of thing, right? Now, this is not about the music composers. This is about Mani Ratnam's conception of what a song should be and how it's changed over the years. Now, Nayakan, we have Tenpandi Chimaile. It easily fantastic tune, lullaby-like tune. It just happens, and it's like it comes again in the film. Just like in Kadal, also that Magudi Magudi song comes again. But here you have a song that both fits the situation, and it's a melody that I can hum on my way home or driving a car or whatever it is. Whereas in Kadal, it's again a fantastic song that it's very zigzag, or I don't know how to call it. Like it's unmelodic. There's a pace to it. There's a rhythm to it. There's an acceleration that perfectly reflects that character, because he's not going to be this perfect person, right? So the song itself is kind of going in that direction. So it fits on screen beautifully. And I can also say Devla Natam from this film, which I cannot wait to see on screen, because it is so unusual. But it's again a song that I can't easily hum, like, that. So you've been moving away towards songs that, I mean, I don't mean this in a negative way, but songs that fit the situation, or rather songs that mirror this rather than just melodic things that work. Tell me a little bit about this decision of yours. I'm not saying it's a pure decision or whatever it is, but your willingness to go along with this and say it's okay if it's a little difficult, this song, but it's going to fit the situation clearly, because we all grow up with MSV or Ilayaraja or Rahman, early Rahman, where we evaluate a song by tune and lyrics. But now you're also saying I'm pushing it into a zone where it's contributing a huge deal to it's mirroring the thing. So tell me a little bit about that.
I think the way songs are required in films these days have changed drastically.
It's changed a lot.
It is not what it was before. It's been changing, but now it has reached a very healthy stage where it is not a compulsion. If it is there, it better work as a highlight. If not, let it tell the story. And so the way we require songs is completely different. The film storytelling becomes the most important thing. And before, they would make songs, and the songs would become hits. And therefore, you trying to say, how do I picturize it? People should come back for the songs. So those burdens are not necessarily there now. Now we can do without songs. And if they are there, all of them need not be this melody, which is beautiful. I love melodies. I love lyrics, and it's always stays. I mean, I think music connects like nothing else. But when it comes to films, it need not be only one form. Like you said, if both the situations of Nayakan and Kadal are similar, all the more reason why we can't go with the same approach with the music. It had to be raw.
I just use this as an example, not to say they're exactly the same.
I understand. Yeah. No, I'm trying to say that if it had been the similar kind of melody, I don't think we would have gone. Both of us would have not gone that way at all, because we needed something which was the filmmaking was raw. It had an fishing village quality to it, so it needed to have that kind of a rawness to help the thing. So I think today it's more closer to an OST space.
Yeah.
Where
music in the background.
Music in the background. Songs come, but songs come as a background. And even for Ponniyin Selvan, there are some songs which we have shot little extensive, some are only in pieces. So now it has become a narrative, exercise. That is all. It is not a standalone item any longer. You don't need anything which will stand alone, unless you're making that kind of film, unless it's an item of sorts which will bring people across and things like that. Otherwise, it is not, it is integral. It just passes through. So use it as much as you think you need and then get on with it. So things have changed. I mean, the way people are seeing, the way their attention span, and the fact that they're consuming it quite a bit on phones and other forms, where they don't have patience for this. They get used to getting on with it. They're used to binge watching. So things have changed, and therefore we are not bound by the rules that we had in the beginning.
Do you miss that though, or you just move on?
No, I think it is. song making is a different animal altogether.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, it's something else because you have to find. It's like a mini film. If you enjoy it, I really like watching songs. Made by others. Some of them are just brilliant, and so when I had to make the songs. I wanted it to be very good. I didn't want it to become normal. So I put in each song would have a lot of effort in it, but it was taking you away from the film and bringing you back. And you try to use it as well as you can to let it be the arc which can land smoothly, which can take off smoothly and land smoothly. Do I miss it? Not really. I know I'd miss watching it, but
not filming it.
not filmmaking, not necessarily.
Was Chekkachivandavanam the first time you tried that as a background, boomy boomy and all
Yeah,
that? Is
yeah.
that the first time you went away from that? or-
Possibly. Possibly.
Because even OKK had quite a few songs that were actual song blocks, right? It's like a, yeah. Can you give me one example of, take any actor. Of course, they come with their own talents and their own specialties, their own face structure, which helps convey certain things. But then you're looking for something. Let's say they do it a little differently. Can you give me an example of what you'd say to make them deliver what you want? Let's take Aishwarya Rai or Vikram or anybody. Like, can you remember one instruction that you said, this is what I want you to do?
I don't know what I say honestly. I just go and whatever comes is said. Sometimes there's a film that I was doing in Malayalam. Okay.
Unaru.
Unaru.
Yeah.
So I didn't know Malayalam well. I mean, I could follow. And the actress I was talking to didn't know English. Okay. Didn't know fluent English. Couldn't understand. But still, before the shot, I would go tell her. I mean, tell her with a lot of intensity, whatever I felt. And it'd all be in English. I don't think she understood too much of it. But it made a difference in the performance. They somewhere sense the intensity, sense what you're feeling. So it need not be necessarily words. It need not be necessarily an action you ask them to do. It could be the intention. It could be the pitch. It could be the weight that you put into
Right,
it.
right.
I mean, so it is just some form of communication that required. Some people require confidence. They need to be told several things. Some people are just instinct, and you just need to sit back and just bring the edges in, and you've got magic.
Yeah, like for example, that shot of that ends the trailer of Aishwarya looking at the throne. There is a mix of longing and this, like, you can read so many things into that look. So I was wondering what you told her, like how are you looking at that throne exactly? Was there even a throne in front of her when she shot that? I don't know.
Yeah, it was in front of her, so it was not very difficult. And I think that's a part of the character.
The character,
for
yeah,
her, this
yeah.
one. So she was very well aware of what it is, and there's something that happens before that, the sequence. So she knows what emotion she's come with, and she knows here, and she stands here, letting the others go in. It is something that she had devised, and therefore this becomes an extension of both those scenes. So when you see it stand alone in a trailer, it might look different, but it is
Part of
her performance comes out of what happened before and afterwards.
the writers, Jayamohan and Ilango Kumaravel, Ilango Kumaravel staged a 4.5 version of this.
Yeah.
Were you all in sync about what to keep and what to leave out, or did you have fights and
Not
arguments?
really fights at all. No, I mean, we were very much in sync in the sense. There's several drafts. Probably we went with version 34 to the shoot and ended up with version 40. So it was constantly, but what was evolving were only the details within the scene and things like that, and links and logic and things like that, but not really too much of the structure. I think the structure fell into place fairly early, but there were things that kind of because we were trying to do a 5-part book into 2-part thing, and we were ready to give up parts of the novel. We had to do bridges to make sure that it is seamless, and therefore those things had to be correct, those things had to be logical, and so I think we started with me and Kumravel sitting on the here and getting a draft, maybe till the version 19 or 20 we had done. And then Jay Mohan came into the thing, and he added so much value in terms of the lines,
The dialogues.
making the Tamil so accessible, so easy for me to get performance out of. And he added lots of crucial things in the screenplay in terms of, so those were all special. I think there was just one kind of synergy that was there, and it was not difficult. We just go through mails basically, but we did, manage to come to some kind of a.
Right. Now, when you did Talapati, which is an epic-based movie, you did not kill Karna at the end, as is in the book. And when you spoke about it, you said the Karna character does not die because so much has gone wrong in his life. There's so much stacked against him. Maybe there's a bit of hope, but I felt it looked too doomed, too tragic for him to die. And that's how I saw the character. Kalki himself has imagined a lot of this book.
Yeah,
It's not a pure history; it's
Yeah.
historical fiction. Was there any part when you were reading it as a boy that you felt, I wish this had been done instead of this, or something like that, and incorporated that into the movie, like a little bit of wish fulfillment? Not anything major in terms of the arcs or whatever, which are all set in stone, but little maybe.
Some uh, had to be changed because you're trying to make into, in a novel you have the liberty to go through several pages
Oh, yeah.
to convince a particular fashion. I mean, he could have said anything and I would have believed Kalki. He has such a gift of telling it
Yeah.
that he will convince all of us that that is correct. Whereas when you shoot and put it on film, it is out there and it has to stand logic, it has to stand believability, it has to stand, structural strengths. So there will be small things that, or big things that needs to be fitted. But basically the spirit is the same. It'll be because we are removing parts and we are not explaining like he had explained a lot.
Yeah, the
So
descriptive.
yeah, descriptive, and to build up a character, he can tell you that when Vandiyathevan saw Nandini, what he felt, and when he saw Kundavai, what he
What do you feel?
felt.
Yeah.
I mean, he has the ability. Now, that can't be done on film. It has to be in the process. You should know the difference, without being explained. There, he can very specifically, so he can say that Kundavai can take you to paradise, whereas Nandini will convince you where you are is the paradise next to her, or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, so he can do that. I mean, it's really beautiful to read it in that fashion. You understand where Vandiyathevan stands. But here we have to do it differently. We have to make sure probably the music will give you that layer, the shot taking, the which is built up in which fashion brings up. So we have to find means and ways of converting his vision into what will be right for the film. And we needed to bring some characters from back to forth to tie up things and to make a bridge of it, to tie everything up. Within two films we have to tie up all the knots, so we need to take some liberties, but it won't be drastic liberties.
Now, there are certain, you just mentioned what Vandiyathevan felt. Now, if I remember this right, I think Kimberly thinks that Vandiyathevan resembles an owl. His face looks like an owl or something like that, if I'm remembering it right. Now, a line like that, which is a very interesting line because that's how she sees him, is it possible to push that into a screenplay, or it kind of.
Not like that. If you do, then what happens? What is the next line? Within the scene, it has to survive.
Survive.
The trouble is sometimes we like these lines and it standalone,
It's
it
funny.
works. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
funny. But we should have, he has the space, he has the time, and he has the ability to go into the mind. She doesn't have to tell him, she might tell him. So that is the liberty of a storyteller.
Storyteller, yeah.
And so, whereas we have taken our own liberties, for telling a story.
What about the editing? Now, one of the things that you and Shrikar did in Chekkachevandavanam was follow a slightly quicker style of editing, where the shots were cut in a way little differently from. Of course, you do this in every film. Follow the rhythm of the story. In this, was there anything that was it a stately kind of editing because of the thing, or because you were doing a contemporary version? Were you going for a more like let's push people into the style? What was the
I think it is not a fixed method, I mean, you don't start off, you find a rhythm as you go,
as the scenes come to you?
No, for the whole film, I think the moment you start cutting a few scenes, you get a rhythm with it, and and that becomes a rhythm with which you follow the rest of the film. I think that rhythm starts even when you're taking the shots. When you're shooting the scene, there is a pace, there is this one. Here in editing, what we do is possibly chisel it more.
Right.
Whether to give space, there should be space. There can't be, it's not a thriller that needs to go at a tempo of that shot. This is an adventure and it carries across landscapes and things like that. So it needs to have that, little more space, and since the time and period should be felt, distances should be felt. He's come away to Sri Lanka, it should look far enough. So it demanded its own rhythm, and that is what we searched and we found.
Even as you're working on PS2, or rather still working on PS1 before you go on to PS2, I'm sure you're writing something and it's going to be different from what you just did. Are you doing like something like a two characters trapped in a building story or something, so you can totally narrow down the the scale of the movie?
Yeah, it will narrow it down, but then you start thinking, who are the two characters? Is their story worth saying? And if it is, then what happens? And that makes it bigger. So it never, I think the plot necessarily doesn't solve the problem. The characters have to define the scale.
Right. Have you ever thought of making, now that it's possible to make movies at a niche level, even when you're working in the mainstream, uh, have you thought of making a movie like, I don't know, a relationship drama like Marriage Story, for instance, where you can, you don't have to worry about anything, but the core audience that you're targeting gets it. You can make it at a low budget and like end it there, or you still, after all these years, you still want to reach out to the widest possible.
Yeah, I like to.
You like
I
that?
love it. Yeah, I think we can take the sensibilities of a niche film and translate it into a bigger screen experience. Not just so far. I mean, so far that's what I felt. I really like movies which are on this big screen in darkness with several people watching, and be able to tell a story there. And I think there are lots of good things. I love niche films. I watch a lot of them. I mean, but I think the standard that they set becomes an input for me here. I mean, I think a lot of sensibilities can very easily move into this side.
Last question. How is it to deal with the fact that sometimes it's going to take years for a film to get the love that it deserves? And also, how do you deal with the fact that not all films are going to be successful?
You have no choice. You have to accept it.
Right.
Because when you start a film, you think it's going to be successful.
Right.
You start with, because you're convinced that you can tell the story well, and it will reach people and they will react to it. And much later, you realize that you don't. You can't tell all the stories that well, and you fall down. The only choice that you have is to get up and run. If you keep lying there, then you don't get to make movies. So you accept, just like you accept success, you accept the mistakes, and try to learn from it if possible. If not, also just start running back. See, go after your dream. Just look for it. I mean, no one promised you a rose garden.
Right.
Okay, they never told me that the entire path is yours. Then you have to find your own path. You'll fall, you'll get up, you'll have to keep. If you're still thirsty, if you're still hungry, then go for it.
Right. So you're not like, what do you call, like, because when you're a sensitive artist like Guru Dutt, for instance, there's a classic example of somebody who could not take the fact that Kagaz Ke Phool do not do well, and he kind of withdrew into a shell. That was like the exact opposite of what you're saying, which is like he didn't get up and run. Of course, it depends on personalities.
I started with first 4 films of mine not doing well.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's true.
the genuine hit probably Recoil was, but for me, in my book, the genuine hit came only with Mouna Ragam. So I'm well trained in
That was long
not
back,
doing it. Yeah, but that's your foundation. You know that it can happen. You know it can happen anytime. But that didn't stop me then, and I don't think it should stop anyone any point of time. I think, you know, I think it is not as though everything that you have is not validated. It is probably one element that doesn't work. Sometimes a film's finish, which you think is brilliant, may not work, may not ring true, may be very down, and they don't come to it. Maybe they don't see the film that often. So that could happen. That doesn't mean that everything in the film is rejected.
Yeah.
You should know that there are some things which really are working. For you as an audience, it's working. It's the overall that didn't work. So you try to take the good and then move on.
Yeah, but does it feel like validation when, like maybe 5 years later, 10 years later, people say, "Oh, you know what? That's actually a good movie. I don't know why it didn't do well or whatever it is."
It feels sad, that's all.
You don't feel. You don't,
I don't feel validated. I just feel, where were you 10 years back?
On that note, thank you so much. I think Ponniyin Selvan is going to become your biggest blockbuster, and I can't wait to see it because, as a fan of the book, as a fan of your movies, it just like first day for sure. Like we've been hearing so many stories about you getting up at or waking everybody up at 2 a.m. and all that. And for a change, now we are doing the same thing, waking up for the early morning show
You are?
and going up. So all the
Okay.
best and thank you so much.
Thanks.